Su Hong has a system which makes his learning speed absurd. It takes him 1 second to learn C-rank martial arts, 2 seconds for master, 3 seconds for perfect SSS rank techniques. A spar was going on between two students. One punch landed hard, and the one on the receiving end sucked in a breath, complaining that it hurt like hell. He laughed it off, saying Su Hong's Vajra fist had clearly improved again, and wondered out loud if he'd already stepped into the micro level. Su Hong stayed calm and said he'd only broken through to micro level 2 days ago. In this world, martial arts were divided into ranks: basic, proficient, micro level, mastered, and perfect. Reaching micro level already put someone ahead of most peers. The other student couldn't help admiring him, saying that just based on Vajra fist alone, no one else in their class could compare. He asked if Su Hong was done resting so they could continue practicing. But the pain from that single punch was still lingering, and he had no intention of taking another hit. Calling Su Hong a cultivation maniac, he waved him off and said he was heading home to eat. Before leaving, he politely bade Teacher Lee goodbye. Teacher Lee reminded him to straighten his clothes before going. Then he turned to Su Hong and finally caught him, asking why he still hadn't paid the 30,000 registration fee for the martial arts department. Applications were closing next month. Su Hong hesitated and asked if he could be given a few more days. Teacher Lee sighed, saying he understood the family situation, but rules were rules and there was nothing he could do. After everyone else left, Su Hong stayed behind, continuing to practice alone. No matter how many times he repeated his forms, one thought kept circling in his mind: the 30,000 registration fee. His memories drifted back. When he was 3, his parents had died during a ferocious beast disaster. Since then, he'd lived with his uncle and aunt. After discovering his talent for martial arts, they had done everything they could to support his training. In an era where ferocious beasts roamed freely, martial artists earned good money. He had trained to give them a better life, yet now it felt like he was only making things harder for them. Later, in a quiet corner, he returned to the cramped, worn-down place he called home. He asked softly whether the rent was almost due and how much they were still short. His uncle's voice came first, saying the rent could wait and that little Hong's registration fee should be paid first. His aunt followed, saying that with such talent, Su Hong was sure to succeed one day and they couldn't afford to hold him back. Then she added, almost casually, that she would stop taking her medicine. It wasn't curing her anyway, and it would save money. His uncle immediately objected, telling her he'd just take on another job instead. She should stay home, rest properly, and focus on her health. Everything else, he said, would work out. Hearing all of this from the shadows, Su Hong felt a tight ache in his chest, and sadness quietly washed over him. He couldn't help feeling that this was a stupid, messed up world. It had twisted his life into something he could barely recognize. Everywhere he looked, people were greedy. If someone simply wanted to register for something they were talented at, they still had to pay money for it, money he had no talent for earning. If he really had been good at making money, he probably wouldn't have had talent for martial arts at all. The more he thought about it, the crazier the world felt. Pushing those thoughts aside, he opened the door and called out that he was back. His aunt, who treated him like her own son, immediately fussed over him, asking why he'd practiced so late again and telling him he must be exhausted. Su Hong tried to take over the chores, telling her he'd handle it, but she waved him off, saying it was nothing and that he should go rest, so he wouldn't be tired the next day. His uncle backed her up, telling him to listen and go rest quickly. Su Hong returned to his room, but sleep refused to come. He lay there, wide awake, his thoughts running in circles. His uncle and aunt had already sacrificed so much for him. He couldn't keep letting that happen. This time, he would solve his own problem. For a martial artist to earn tens of thousands in just a few days, there was only one place that came to mind. The very next day, a loud announcement echoed through the streets. Audience friends were welcomed to the Martial Apprentice Arena Challenge, where only victory or defeat mattered, regardless of life or death. It was the underground martial arena. The announcer's voice rose as he introduced the ring defender for the day, someone called Mr. Minotaur. If he could win 4 matches in a row, he'd walk away with 60,000 in prize money. If not, he'd get nothing. The crowd was told to watch closely. The audience immediately erupted in whispers. No one recognized him. Some guessed he was a rookie. Others scoffed, saying a newcomer jumping straight into the arena challenge was basically courting death. Off to the side, the announcer leaned over and told the kid to show some passion and heat up the atmosphere. Minotaur looked confused and asked how he was supposed to do that. The announcer sighed and told him to provoke the crowd, curse a little. This was exactly why rookies were such a headache. Realization dawned on Minotaur. Letting out a roar, he shouted that below the level of a martial artist, he was invincible invincible, calling on all weaklings to come and fight him. The crowd exploded at once. Some cursed him for being absurdly arrogant, while others laughed and praised the guts. The atmosphere instantly boiled over. Someone in the crowd sneered that this guy wouldn't even know how he died later. That only lit the fuse. Cheers erupted from every direction. Some people shouted that it was good, others yelled for blood, and a few just cursed at the so-called Minotaur at the top of their lungs. With the atmosphere boiling over, the announcer declared that the match had officially begun. Behind the Minotaur mask, Su Hong stayed calm. He could clearly feel the heavy killing intent unique to the underground arena. Still, this was the fastest way to gather enough tuition money. As long as he could win a few rounds with his Vajra fist, it would be worth it. His first opponent stepped forward, calling him an arrogant brat and saying he'd play with him a little. Su Hong barely paid attention, his eyes calmly sizing the man up. The opponent's momentum was strong, but his footing was unstable. From the look of it, winning wouldn't be difficult. Seeing him space out, the opponent cursed and charged straight in with a punch. Su Hong sidestepped it cleanly, then casually swung his other hand. The strike landed square on the man's jaw, sending him flying straight back to where he'd come from. Next, the announcer instantly lost her composure. She was already starting to love this masked fighter, even joking to herself that she might want to ask him out someday. Laughing into the mic, she shouted that Minotaur had taken his first win. The crowd exploded with excited shouts and cheers. A second challenger stepped up, scoffing that the last one had just been unlucky, but things would be different this time. Su Hong simply replied with a casual please, while calmly judging his opponent. Based on his build, the guy's strength should be decent, perfect for testing how powerful his Vajra fist really was. The man shouted and leapt in with a heavy punch. Su Hong met it head-on. With one Vajra fist strike, he shattered the incoming force. The opponent cried out in shock at the sheer power behind it. Su Hong could already tell the difference. Strong, but still weaker than him. After tanking a single counterattack, he'd relied too much on his upper body, leaving his waist wide open. Su Hong followed up with a brutal kick, and the man was sent flying off the stage just like the first. The arena went wild. Some people cursed in disbelief, others shouted that he was insanely strong. Next, the announcer excitedly declared that Minotaur had achieved 2 consecutive wins. The cheers grew even louder, almost deafening. In a quieter corner, a few well-dressed spectators watched with sharp eyes. One of them muttered that the kid wasn't even a quasi-martial artist, yet his strength far surpassed the average. There was no doubt about it, this one was unusual. The announcer's voice rang out again, declaring Minotaur's 3rd consecutive win. In the viewing area, one of the men watching commented that the kid was better than the worst but nowhere near the best. Someone like that, he said, was perfect material for match fixing. From behind him, a masked young man spoke up, saying he'd go handle it. The older man reminded him not to reveal the fact that he had already broken through to martial artist level. After racking up so many wins, Su Hong felt increasingly confident. Ordinary martial apprentices were no longer much of a challenge to him. With his Vajra fist at the micro level, winning one more match would earn him the full 60,000 prize money. Just then, the crowd suddenly stirred. People started shouting that White Fox was actually stepping into the ring. The moment the masked fighter appeared, the arena erupted. Some exclaimed that White Fox was a quasi-martial artist. Others protested that a quasi-martial artist fighting a martial apprentice was basically cheating. Su Hong's heart sank slightly. A quasi-martial artist, this match was going to be troublesome. Still, backing down wasn't an option. He couldn't afford to lose now. White Fox stopped in front of him and studied him calmly before speaking, telling him not to be afraid. He even claimed he knew how to hold back. The announcer's voice cut in again, declaring the final match of the arena challenge and shouting for the fight to begin. Both fighters exploded forward at full speed. Su Hong immediately sensed the gap in their realms. His cultivation was lower, so he had no choice but to go all out with his opening move. His punch blasted forward, sending visible shockwaves rippling through the air. The collision shook the ring as both sides displayed frightening power. The instant their fists met, Su Hong's heart skipped. This power, something was wrong. His opponent wasn't a quasi-martial artist at all. He was a true martial artist who had deliberately suppressed his vitality. A surge of tension washed over Su Hong. He'd never expected a monster like this to appear out of nowhere. White Fox took a sharp breath and launched another attack, unleashing the Thunder Rush Fist. One strike followed another in rapid succession, each blow heavier than the last. Under the relentless assault, Su Hong was forced back, pain spreading through his body. So this was the strength of a real martial martial artist. The crowd was stunned. Someone recognized the technique, shouting that it was the 3 Echo Thunder Rush Fist. No one had expected to see such a move here, and the surprise alone was worth the price of admission. Others shook their heads, saying the Minotaur was finished. To them, the outcome was already obvious. Yet White Fox showed no intention of stopping, his attacks continuing one after another, pressing the advantage without mercy. After a while, White Fox clearly started getting bored. He told Minotaur that only defending was pointless and urged him to fight back, saying he wanted to see what kind of strength he really had. For now, Minotaur could do nothing but block. Even through his defenses, the punches were tearing into him, pain spreading with every impact. If this kept up, he knew he would lose for sure. He needed a chance to counterattack, but White Fox's strikes were too fast and too relentless, leaving no openings at all. Then White Fox found one himself. Punch shot straight toward Minotaur's jaw. The impact sent him flying, and he crashed hard onto the ground. Lying there, his vision blurred as his consciousness began to fade. Before he could recover, White Fox stepped up and spoke calmly. He told him that he wouldn't get a single coin of the prize money from this match, but his teacher was willing to invite him in. If Minotaur agreed to fix matches for them in the future, they would pay him the equivalent of this match's prize money. Even with White Fox's foot pressing down on his face, Minotaur refused without hesitation. He said he would never do something so shameless. White Fox was briefly taken aback. He hadn't expected such a firm rejection. Regaining his composure, he warned him to think carefully, saying that refusing them came with a price he couldn't afford. Minotaur shot back, asking whether people who did things like this really deserved to call themselves martial artists. That was enough. White Fox said there was nothing left to discuss. As he turned to leave, he coldly added that since Minotaur wouldn't cooperate, he had no choice but to cripple him, so he could only dream about being a martial artist in the future. As White Fox moved to strike his leg, those words echoed in Minotaur's mind, sharp and piercing: become a martial artist. A surge of instinct kicked in. He twisted away at the last moment, narrowly avoiding the blow. He couldn't afford to be crippled. Forcing himself back up, Minotaur re-entered the fight. White Fox stared in surprise as Minotaur steadied himself, eyes burning. He couldn't fall here. Not here. Something snapped inside him, and a second wind surged through his battered body. White Fox couldn't hide his shock. He'd clearly landed a Thunder Rush Fist earlier, yet somehow this guy was still standing. Yet in his heart, Su Hong remained painfully clear-headed. He wanted to become a martial artist. He couldn't allow the sacrifices his uncle and aunt had made over all these years to be wasted. He wanted to give them a good life. But did that really mean he had to abandon everything a martial artist was supposed to stand for? The answer came almost instantly. No, that kind of future was something he would never accept. At that very moment, something strange happened. A translucent status window suddenly appeared right in front of his eyes. Cold, emotionless words floated on it, asking what he was willing to sacrifice for his future and for his faith. Su Hong didn't hesitate. His eyes burned with fierce resolve as he answered, without the slightest doubt, that he was willing to give up everything. The notification asked again whether he was truly willing to pay the price. Minotaur answered the same way as before, everything. The moment the word left his mouth, something inside him began to change. His shadow on the ground twisted and stretched, slowly turning into the outline of a terrifying monster. Su Hong was stunned. He had no idea where this place was, and the shadow looming behind him belonged to some massive, unknown being. Before he could ask anything, that existence spoke, saying it would give him this chance. An unfamiliar aura wrapped around Su Hong, and another translucent status window appeared in front of him, listing his information in detail. Name: Su Hong. Vitality: 85. Spirit: 23. Physique: mortal body. Mission: Way of the Arena. Martial skills: Vajra Fist, micro level 7%. Floating Light Palm, proficient 35%. Void Step, proficient 56%. Martial value 0. Su Hong stared at it in disbelief. It really did look like it was displaying all of his attributes. On a whim, he reached out and touched the mission section, half wondering if it worked like a touchscreen. The moment he did, a new notification popped up. Random mission: Way of the Arena. Mission description: the road to becoming a powerhouse is full of thorns. Player, please polish your martial arts here and deal with White Fox waiting in the outside world. Objectives: hone your martial arts, raise Vajra Fist to the mastered level, and raise Floating Light Palm and Void Step to the micro level. Mission reward: Beginner's Guide. Current progress, Vajra Fist, micro level. Note, completing this mission will unlock the Beginner's Guide. Beginner's Guide? Before he could think further, a fist suddenly shot straight toward his face. Su Hong instinctively ducked. When he looked up, he froze. Standing in front of him was someone who looked exactly like him. The clone moved with perfect form, using Vajra Fist with a level of subtlety that far surpassed his own. Every movement was standard and precise, like something straight out of a textbook. With such a flawless example right in front of him, there was no way he could let the opportunity slip. As he exchanged blows with the clone, a realization struck him. This wasn't just a fight, it was a demonstration. Midway through the exchange, he noticed something else. His Vajra Fist proficiency had jumped. It had been 7% before, but now it had already reached 10. The improvement was shockingly fast. So this was it. This place allowed him to rapidly upgrade his martial skills. He kept fighting, learning, and adjusting with every clash. His proficiency climbed higher and higher, until eventually it hit 100%. His floating light palm reached full mastery, and with a single strike, he sent the clone flying away. His void step followed, also reaching full proficiency. Even Vajra Fist was perfected. Exhaustion finally caught up to him. Breathing heavily, Su Hong straightened up and gave a sincere nod. Thanks a lot. A notification rang out, congratulating the player on completing the mission way of the arena. The rewards had already been issued, and the system asked whether he agreed to return to reality. Su Hong didn't hesitate and chose yes. In the next instant, he was back in the arena, once again wearing the Minotaur mask, standing opposite White Fox. White Fox charged in immediately, sneering that Minotaur was still pretending to be mysterious, and unleashed another round of thunderous fist. Just like before, the blows were fast and fierce, carrying terrifying power. But this time was different. Minotaur calmly remarked that it was too slow. He slipped past every strike with ease, his movements light and precise. Before White Fox could react, a fist slammed straight into his face. The impact shattered the mask, and White Fox crashed to the ground. The entire arena froze. The crowd stared in disbelief, mouths hanging open. Minotaur stood tall in the ring while White Fox lay motionless at his feet. Minotaur calmly asked when he would receive the prize money, since he had won the fourth match. The announcer was clearly stunned, fumbling for words before the system announcement echoed through the arena. Minotaur was officially declared the winner, having successfully defended the ring and claimed the grand prize of 60,000. In the audience, the teacher's expression darkened. Vajra Fist at the mastered level. How could a mere martial apprentice possibly achieve that? Even most true martial artists couldn't reach such a level. Realizing something was wrong, he quietly ordered his people to follow Minotaur and investigate his true identity. They immediately acknowledged the command. After leaving the arena, Su Hong quickly sensed he was being followed. The moment they closed in, he burst into motion, his speed exploding as he vanished from their sight. The pursuers stopped in confusion, unable to figure out where he had gone, but they knew they couldn't give up. The boss wanted answers. Hidden safely, Su Hong sneered inwardly at their attempt to track him. An hour later, he had already returned home. When his aunt and uncle saw the large pile of money he brought back, they were completely stunned. His uncle half-jokingly asked whether he'd gone and robbed a bank, wondering where all that money had come from. Su Hong casually explained that he'd been working as a sparring partner at a dojo. The dojo master had taken a liking to his talent and decided to sponsor his martial arts studies. The uncle couldn't help asking if this was really the same dojo Su Hong had complained about before, the one that was famously stingy. Su Hong just looked at them and asked whether they still didn't trust him. Faced with his serious expression, both of them broke into smiles. The uncle laughed and said that was true. Little Hong would never lie to them. The aunt nodded along, saying their little Hong really did have a bright future ahead. The two of them were so happy they didn't even know how to express it properly. Later that night, Su Hong climbed up to the roof by himself. Sitting there under the quiet sky, he looked up at the bright, beautiful moon. It was one of those moments where a boy slowly turned into a man. He mentally went over everything. The martial arts exam registration fee was taken care of. The rent was settled. Even his aunt's medical expenses were no longer an urgent worry. Thinking about it all, he couldn't help but laugh in relief. Calling up the system interface, he admitted to himself that being able to turn such danger into safety this time was entirely thanks to this mysterious system. Looking closer, he noticed that aside from his martial skill levels, his other stats hadn't changed much. His gaze lingered on one thing in particular: martial value. So this was what it was used for. A new notification appeared, stating that he had defeated a higher-level opponent and gained 57 martial value points. Martial value could be used to increase vitality and martial skills, but it warned him to use it carefully. Su-hong decided to try it right away. The moment he added points to his vitality, a scorching surge of energy exploded inside his body, like flames roaring through his veins. He quickly checked the numbers. His vitality had reached 90. That was already the level of a quasi-martial artist. Without hesitation, he chose to pour all the remaining martial value into vitality. The number kept climbing, and with every increase, his physical strength grew more obvious. His body felt lighter, stronger, and far more alive than before. Under the moonlight, Su-hong clenched his fists, feeling the changes settle in. This was only the beginning. After calming down a bit, Su-hong muttered to himself that it wasn't just his physical strength that had improved. Even the wounds covering his body were almost completely healed, and his entire body felt brimming with endless power. With energy to spare, he felt an urge to properly test his current strength. He leapt across the rooftops, moving lightly, and soon thought of a good place to go. The school's drill ground had a combat power tester. That would do. Not long after, he arrived at Star City No. 1 High School's outdoor drill ground. The place was quiet, and a lone Tier 1 combat power tester sat there in the darkness. Gathering his blazing vitality, Su-hong rolled his shoulders and decided to hold back, planning to use only 70% of his strength. When his fist struck the machine, the impact rang out sharply. For a split second, his heart jumped at how heavy the punch felt. Then he realized something was wrong. The tester sparked and went dead. He stared at it, stunned, and immediately started worrying. The quality of this thing was way too poor. Would they make him pay for it? Deciding it was best not to stick around, he turned to leave. Just then, a voice sounded from behind, asking who was making so much noise in the middle of the night. Su-hong didn't wait to find out. He bolted. Soon after, a furious caretaker rushed over and saw the ruined machine. Cursing loudly, he demanded to know which bastard had snuck onto the drill ground and smashed the tester. In his rage, he muttered that only those two troublemaking brats, Chun Shan and Li Duo, could possibly be capable of something like this. Grinding his teeth, he swore that once school started, he'd make sure to properly educate them. Star City No. 1 High School's gymnasium was packed. Students filled the place wall to wall, and Su-hong was mixed in among them. While waiting, he heard someone mention that Chun Shan had been beaten up, which immediately caught his attention. Curious, he asked what had happened. Someone nearby said they'd heard Chun Shan had smashed the combat power tester on the outdoor drill ground in the middle of the night, and then refused to admit it. Because of that, the principal had punished him on the spot. Hearing this, Su-hong felt a little awkward. Turns out someone else had taken the blame for his mess. At the same time, he couldn't help feeling relieved. If they'd actually caught him, there was no way he could have afforded to pay for that tester. Before he could dwell on it, the announcer's voice echoed through the hall, telling everyone to quiet down. He announced that they'd invited an old comrade of his, a Tier 3 martial artist named Chan Tian, to teach everyone a C-rank martial art, Thunder Rush Fist, and instructed the students to learn it properly. The gym instantly erupted. Some students shouted that it was their first time seeing a Tier 3 martial artist in person. Others exclaimed that C-rank martial arts taught at outside dojos usually cost hundreds of thousands just in tuition. But the moment Su-hong heard the name, his eyes lit up. Thunder Rush Fist. That was the same martial art White Fox had used in the underground arena. One punch producing the impact of 3. Its power was undeniable. Outside, even the registration fee to learn something like this would cost a fortune. There was no way he was letting this opportunity slip. Chun Tian didn't waste time on chatter. He told the students he would demonstrate the technique 10 times from beginning to end, and how much they learned would depend entirely on themselves. Then he stepped forward, adjusted his stance, and began. With a shout of Thunder Rush Fist, his punch shot out. The momentum was fierce and overbearing, the sound of thunder rolling through the gym. He explained as he demonstrated, at the basic level, a punch produced 1 thunderclap. At the proficient level, 3 sounds. At micro level, 5. At the mastered level, 7 sounds, which was his current realm. As he finished the demonstration, 7 consecutive thunderous sounds echoed out, leaving the air vibrating. After expending so much aura, Chun Tian paused to regulate his breathing. He then added that at the perfect realm, one could strike out 9 thunder sounds. Still, he told them not to aim too high. If they could even grasp the basics today, that alone would already be good enough. After a short pause, Chun Tian announced that he would begin the second demonstration and told everyone to try following along. The gym quickly filled with students shouting awkward battle cries as they copied his movements as best they could. Hours passed in the blink of an eye. One by one, students began to collapse from exhaustion. Some complained that they couldn't grasp it at all. Others groaned about being completely drained. A few stubborn ones kept practicing, asking if anyone had figured out the trick, even though their bodies were clearly begging for mercy. One of Su Hong's friends wiped his sweat and sighed, saying that C-rank martial arts were just too difficult to learn. As he looked around, he suddenly realized Su Hong was nowhere to be seen. For a moment, he wondered if Su Hong had somehow already learned it, but then questioned where he could have gone. Just then, excited laughter rang out nearby. Someone proudly announced that he had successfully reached the basic level. The friend turned and saw Chen Shan standing there, looking pleased with himself. A wave of jealousy washed over him. No wonder everyone called Chen Shan a genius. How exactly was his brain built? The principal quickly stepped forward, introducing Chen Shan as the school's #1 genius, and asked Chun Tian whether he was interested in guiding him further. Students immediately crowded around, showering Chun Shan with praise and calling him a true prodigy. Chun Tian, however, was unimpressed. He casually remarked that this barely counted as genius. In other cities, reaching this level was nothing more than passing. The group moved outside as their conversation continued. Chun Tian complained to the principal that this batch of students wasn't impressive at all, making the trip feel pointless. Deep down, he suspected the school had focused too much on taking in students with money rather than talent. Still, for the sake of appearances, he comforted himself by thinking that at least one student had reached the basic level, and he'd been paid well for the visit. Out loud, he simply asked whether the principal really expected to find a top-tier genius here. The principal sighed, agreeing that the path of martial cultivation was cruel and that talent was far too important. Hard work alone, without opportunity, simply wasn't enough. Just as the two were talking, a sudden sound echoed through the air. Both of them froze, then snapped their heads toward its source. 7 consecutive thunderous sounds. 7-sound thunder rush fist. Their faces changed instantly. They exclaimed in disbelief, asking how the school could possibly have someone capable of that level. The principal was even more stunned. He said it was impossible. He'd never heard of such a person in the school. Only then did the principal realize something else. He didn't even recognize that student. After all, the kid hadn't paid a single extra fee. His gaze fixed on the clothes, and his heart skipped. That uniform clearly marked him as a student. The shock hit hard. If things had gone his way, this student probably wouldn't have even qualified to attend the lesson. And yet, even Chin Tian was stunned. He muttered that he'd only taught for half a day, yet someone had already reached the mastered level. The principal's mind went blank. He asked if he'd heard wrong. 9 sounds? Was that really 9 sounds? Chin Tian couldn't even speak. He stood there in silence, emotions surging so hard he felt like crying. The principal wasn't much better off. He'd never imagined that someone without money could possess such terrifying talent. Seeing Chun Tian frozen in place, the principal asked what was wrong with him. Chun Tian finally exhaled and said he understood now. Everything suddenly made sense. Without another word, he adjusted his stance and threw out a thunder rush fist of his own. The air exploded. 8 thunderous sounds rang out. The principal nearly jumped. 8 sounds? Chun Tian had broken through? Chun Tian stared at his own fist, excitement flashing across his face. He said that seeing that thunder rush fist just now had given him the inspiration he'd been missing all these years. Without it, he might never have broken through in this lifetime. But then reality hit. This was not the time to celebrate. Chun Tian urgently told the principal to hurry and find that student. The principal snapped out of it and actually started running. Unfortunately, by the time they reached the spot, the person was already gone. As for Su Hong, he'd already achieved what he came for. While moving away, he reflected that cultivating a C-rank martial art was far more exhausting than the D-rank Vajra fist. His thunder rush fist had already reached the perfect realm. Now the next step was figuring out how to earn more martial value points and push through to become a true martial artist as soon as possible. A life and death fight like the underground arena wasn't an option every time. If he could gain martial value through normal sparring, that would be much better. Not long after, he arrived at his workplace, the Raising Thunder Dojo. This was the place. Inside, students were training as usual. When they saw him, someone asked why he'd shown up today. Su-hong casually replied that there wasn't much going on and he'd just come by to practice. Just then, a loud thud echoed across the hall. A student was sent crashing to the ground. Standing over him, another guy sneered, saying that if someone dared claim his teacher taught poorly, they should first admit their own lack of comprehension instead of making excuses. Su-hong glanced over and asked what was going on over there. Someone nearby explained that Su-hong hadn't been around much lately, so he wouldn't know what was going on. That student's teacher was a newly arrived instructor. Very strong, apparently, but he looked down on ordinary people like them and taught in a very perfunctory way. On top of that, his disciple, a guy named Li Yan, was also extremely strong. Right as they were talking, another student was knocked to the ground. Li Yan looked down at him and sneered, saying that with such a level, he actually dared to challenge him. Before things could get worse, Su-hong stepped in and grabbed Li Yan's wrist, telling him that was enough. Li Yan immediately glared at him, demanding to know who he was and telling him to let go. If he had the guts, Li Yan said they could settle it properly in the arena, one-on-one. Su-hong didn't back down and calmly agreed. At that moment, a voice cut in, asking what all the noise was about and announcing that class was about to start. Li Yan withdrew his hand and sneered that Su-hong was lucky this time. Watching him leave, Su-hong couldn't help thinking that this guy was far too arrogant. Soon after, the instructor spoke up, announcing that today was the last day he'd be teaching the Raging Sea Spear technique. As usual, he would only demonstrate it once. As he took his stance, the instructor clearly didn't believe anyone could learn it from a single demonstration. Still, Su-hong watched with intense focus. For him, once was enough. His eyes locked onto every movement as the spear swept through the air. When the demonstration ended, the instructor turned to leave, saying that how much they learned depended entirely on themselves. Complaints immediately broke out. Some students cursed the one-time demonstration as a scam. Others complained that those in the back row couldn't even see clearly. Su-hong, however, had already grasped the essence. The spear moved like a flood dragon trampling the sea, its momentum rolling forward like endless waves. Taking up a spear himself, he began to move, perfectly replicating what he'd just seen. For a moment, everyone fell silent. Then the exclamations erupted. People stared in disbelief, shouting that Su-hong had actually learned it. Others muttered that this was the first time they'd ever seen such a martial arts prodigy, while some bitterly wondered if they were simply too stupid to comprehend it. Drawn by the noise, Li Yan returned, asking who had supposedly learned the technique. Explained with a scoff. Then he saw Su-hong. Watching Su-hong's spear flow smoothly, Li Yan's eyes narrowed. It really did look like he'd grasped it. Interest sparked in his mind. Testing someone like this would be fun. Stepping forward, Li Yan called out to him, saying he'd give him a few pointers on his spear technique. Li Yan snorted and grabbed his spear, twirling it as he pointed the tip towards Su-hong, clearly telling him to come on. He repeated that he'd give him a few pointers. Su-hong simply agreed. Someone nearby hurriedly tried to stop him, warning that even though Li Yan's character was terrible, his strength was genuinely high, and Su-hong shouldn't act impulsively. Su-hong just smiled and told him not to worry. He stepped forward, picked up his own spear, and settled into position. Facing Li Yan, he politely said that he looked forward to being enlightened. That single sentence completely set Li Yan off. He snapped that Su-hong was being arrogant and immediately declared that he'd show him the Raging Sea Spear technique at the micro level. Su-hong remained calm. As he moved his spear, he quietly adjusted his control, deliberately suppressing it in his mind. Proficient level. He had no intention of revealing everything. He only wanted the guy in front of him to clearly understand just how ridiculous he was being. The moment Su-hong's spear moved, Li Yan froze. That flow, that momentum, it was unmistakable. Proficient level Raging Sea Spear technique. But no matter how hard he tried, reality refused to change. As the Raging Sea Spear technique reached the proficient level, Su-hong's movements flowed like surging tides. The moment he executed the form, the opponent froze in disbelief. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. A mere martial apprentice, someone who wasn't even a true martial artist yet, had actually cultivated the Raging Sea Spear technique to the proficient level. That was something even many seasoned practitioners couldn't achieve. Yet the scene in front of him was undeniably real. A system notification flashed before Su-hong's eyes. Defeated a higher level opponent. Martial value plus 35. So it really worked. Ordinary sparring could also grant martial value. That meant he didn't need to risk his life constantly. He could steadily grow stronger through proper combat. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, the opponent's mind was in complete chaos. Impossible, absolutely impossible. I've trained for years, yet he reached this level in such a short time. Then what was the point of all my effort? The disbelief crushed him. Before things could escalate further, Su Hong calmly withdrew his spear and said, "That's enough." At that moment, the instructor arrived. Seeing the situation, he immediately stepped in and reprimanded the disciple. When the young man tried to protest, the instructor's expression turned cold, and he slapped him across the face without hesitation. "If you can't even face your own failure," he scolded, "what kind of martial artist do you think you are?" Many onlookers felt a strange sense of satisfaction at the sight. The disciple had always been arrogant, and seeing him humbled felt almost refreshing. Still, the instructor's gaze soon shifted to Su Hong, filled with disbelief. He had only demonstrated the technique once, yet this boy had already reached proficiency. Even the so-called geniuses of the imperial capital couldn't achieve something like that. "Your talent is frightening," the instructor said slowly. "This boy may be arrogant, but meeting someone like you is also a form of fortune for him." He then cupped his hands slightly toward Su Hong. "Little brother, my disciple's behavior reflects my failure to teach properly. Please forgive us." Su Hong was momentarily stunned. He hadn't expected the man to change his attitude so quickly. This guy switches faces faster than flipping a page, he thought to himself. As he left the training grounds, fatigue finally caught up with him, but it was a satisfying kind of exhaustion. He'd gained far more than expected today. Not only had he mastered the Thunder Rush Fist and the Raging Sea Spear technique, but he'd also earned a considerable amount of martial value. Walking through the campus of Star City No. 1 High School, he quietly reviewed everything in his mind. The entrance examination was coming soon. The wealthy students were already preparing high-grade alloy weapons. If he wanted to compete, he needed one too. The feel of the spear still lingered in his hands. "I'll use a spear from now on," he decided. He needed to find himself a proper alloy spear, and fast. He realized that the little money he had wasn't even enough to cover his aunt's medical expenses, let alone buy an alloy weapon that cost nearly 70,000. Still, he refused to give up. There had to be another way. Just then, an announcement echoed through the city, saying that ferocious beasts were appearing more frequently in the wilderness, and that the city lord was recruiting martial artists to hunt them, offering generous rewards. Hearing this, Su Hong immediately understood. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for. Later, when he returned home, his aunt was still busy as always. She told him he shouldn't be working so hard, reminding him that he had already given them money not long ago. His uncle, however, said that as long as he could still work, he wouldn't rely on Su Hong, insisting on earning what he could himself. When Su Hong came in, they greeted him warmly. He told them to rest and let him handle things, saying that he could make money now. His uncle laughed and said that although it sounded nice, he couldn't just sit idle. He would still earn a little for daily expenses. His aunt smiled as well, saying they needed to save as much as possible so Su Hong could focus on cultivating in the future. Hearing all this, Su Hong felt a tight ache in his chest. His uncle and aunt had lived frugally for so long that unless he could truly earn enough for them to live without worry, they would never stop pushing themselves. That night, standing on the rooftop, he opened his status panel again. He knew the wilderness was dangerous, and if he wanted to go there safely, he needed more strength. He decided to invest everything he had into improving himself. As he poured his remaining martial value into vitality, a powerful sensation surged through his body. His blood roared, his muscles tightened, and his aura grew denser and more oppressive with every increase. The number continued to rise until it finally stopped at 95.2. Standing there beneath the night sky, Su Hong could feel the power coursing through him. His presence alone now carried the faint pressure of a ferocious beast ready to be unleashed. Su Hong silently noted that his vitality had reached 95.2, just one small step away from truly becoming a martial artist. 2 days later, late at night, he lay on the floor of the training hall, completely exhausted. Every part of his body ached, but his eyes were bright. His martial skills had all reached completion. Thunder Rush Fist, Raging Sea Spear, Vajra Fist, and Floating Light Palm, all perfected. He let out a long breath, thinking that he had finally done it. 2 full days of non-stop cultivation had paid off. Now it was time to move on. The next morning, he set out for the Star City Martial Artist Base. When he arrived, he couldn't help but pause in amazement. Even though he'd seen this place countless times on the news, standing here in person felt completely different. Martial artists were everywhere, filling the streets with a powerful presence. As he walked forward, his eyes swept over the large public notice board. Non-ranked ferocious beast, 300 blue star coins. Tier 1 early stage ferocious beast, 1000 blue star coins. Tier 1 mid stage, 3000 blue star coins. Tier 1 late stage, 5000 blue star coins. Reading the list, Su Hong frowned slightly. The rule beneath it stated that only the left ear of the beast would be accepted as proof. Without it, no reward would be issued. So primitive, he thought, surprised by how crude the system still was. Nearby, he noticed a man at the counter saying something like, "Miss, please help me calculate how much these are worth." The man was carrying a sack that clearly contained severed beast ears. Just then, a commotion broke out at the entrance. Someone shouted for people to move aside, saying that young Master Yi had arrived. The crowd parted instinctively. Su Hong glanced over and immediately noticed the arrogant figure striding in. Something about the man felt strangely familiar. His brows furrowed. That presence, it reminded him of someone. Around him, whispers broke out. If it weren't for his uncle being in charge here, he'd have been beaten to death long ago. I heard he got beaten up badly a few days ago. Serves him right. Really? No wonder he's been keeping such a low profile lately. Su Hong listened quietly, then looked up again, his eyes meeting the other man's for a brief moment. Recognition flickered between them. The air subtly tightened. Su Hong couldn't help but think that the real danger wasn't just the ferocious beasts out there, but people as well. He reminded himself to stay cautious no matter what. As he was heading out, someone glanced at him and commented, saying he looked young, and asked if this was his first time going into the wilderness alone. Su Hong just gave a short response and kept walking. Behind him, that person shook his head and muttered that it was another ignorant kid rushing to his death. Once inside the wilderness, Su Hong took in the surroundings. The forest was lush and quiet, almost peaceful. Still, he reminded himself not to let his guard down. He told himself he had to return with results. He couldn't afford to come back empty-handed. 2 hours passed as he moved deeper inside. He drank some water and frowned. He hadn't seen a single ferocious beast yet. It made him wonder if all the beasts near the outer area had already been cleared out. With that thought, he picked up his pace and headed deeper into the forest. Then suddenly, his expression changed. Right in front of him stood a massive figure, a ferocious beast. It was huge, its aura oppressive, and it looked exactly like the descriptions he'd seen in the books. Su Hong instantly recognized it. It was a Tier 1 early-stage ferocious beast, the Azure Moon Wolf. It stared at him with bloodshot eyes, baring its fangs as it let out a low growl. Clearly, it was hungry. As the beast tensed and prepared to pounce, Su Hong took a deep breath and steadied himself. The battle was about to begin. If you don't want to miss it, subscribe right now to make sure you get it, and don't forget to turn on all the notifications.